Welcome to At Home is Now. My name is Wanaka Oberhuber. I'm your host. My guest today is Empress Sparkle. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, I like to start out by asking you what you're really excited about right now and how that contributes to your joy and happiness.
Oh, so what am I excited about? I'm doing a massive journey at the moment. So, an absolute massive journey of sort of finding out, remembering what I want to do type thing. So, I am on a massive sort of journey, and the joy that brings me is the fact that I get to now spend more time with my children, which is really important. I think a lot of people forget. And one of the things I'm actually looking forward to doing is moving back to the countryside very soon as well.
So, what else are you excited about? Are there things that you love to explore at this point in your life and people you
Um,
like to contact and things that actually really go deeper into how exciting life is for you?
oh, blimey, I have about 125 messages a day where I'm dealing with helping people heal, helping people with attachments and stuff like that. So it's a bit sort of like, wow, where do I go with that? Because it's amazing when they start to heal and stuff like that. It brings me such joy because I have a bit of a savior complex. So I hold my hands up there. Um, and then, oh, what else is there? There's so much going on at the minute. Like, and I love going out to the countryside. I'm being very blessed at the moment by my gods and goddesses. They are truly blessing me at the moment. I cannot explain how much they're blessing. So it's sort of like, yeah, there's a lot going on. An awful lot, to be honest. I'm a bit like, oh, where do I go? That makes me smile.
Yeah, so you share in your description of yourself that you communicate with the spirits and now you are sharing about your gods and goddesses. So maybe you'd like to share a little more about how that is for you and how that connection contributes to your life and perhaps even all the practical things that it enables you to do that you might not be aware of if you didn't have that connection.
Oh, blimey. Well, one thing I wouldn't be aware of is just how dark the planet's becoming, spiritual on a spiritual note. Um, but daily I get to be blessed with communicating with people from beyond the grave. I also get blessed with the fact of I can help people heal because I can see their soul, so I can see what sort of damaged them and stuff. And my gods and goddesses bless me, help me with that every day, which is an amazing thing because I think a lot of times we go to a counselor and we talk out our issues and stuff like that, and they make us go over our issues again and again and again and again and again, and that can actually re-traumatize us. Whereas you come to me and I go, right, you don't have to tell me anything because my spirit guides are going to send me memories, or they're going to give me my own memories so I know where to go with you, where to heal, where we need to go. So we don't have to re-traumatize ourselves when we're healing, when we're doing energy cleansing and stuff. And I think as well, because there is this spiritual issue at the moment that a lot of people are having that they don't see, where they're accepting the darkness and stuff like that, because that's the way the earth is, you know, very selfish. People are very selfish. So I think one of the things for me is I also get to help people recognize sort of like some of their own darkness within and sort of go, oh, okay, so this issue isn't just for them, it's actually just, it's for me as well. So it's sort of like it's a big gift that also helps me stay protected as well, actually, a lot from people I know which are just going to try and use me and stuff like that.
So the connection with the gods and goddesses enables you to have keep your personal issues out of it. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the connection with them also, they gave me the gifts. So such as Apollon gave me the gift of clairvoyance. Hecate and Hermes blessed me with the gift to be able to speak to people from beyond the grave. So they sort of gave me the gifts to help me actually be blessed enough to be able to help people heal, and to help people go forward with their life instead of being stuck in this sort of cycle of abandonment issues or trust issues, etc. So they've gave me a gift to help people.
Oh, that's beautiful. So when you say you don't need to re-traumatize, what do you mean by that? Do they focus you on things that where instead of triggering a trauma, it triggers a solution, or how does that work?
So basically, I do energy cleansing, which is a form of Reiki, but it's more of a I send white light instead of different colors. I don't use the symbols as much, as well as the fact I cleanse the soul. So sometimes what people don't realize is actually some things that happen to us can get into our soul and really affect our soul, and they can actually change the color of it. So one of the things that I do is make sure we sort of cleanse that off. I also take the emotions that not the emotions, that's not the word. I take the person that caused the conflict out of the situation as well. So I'd actually cut ties with them, to make it easier for them. Because what I personally feel is sometimes for people, having them still connected to our soul and still there in our soul can actually really affect us, because we've still got their energy within our presence. And that can be something as simple as they've had a thought of us that day, and because of that, or we've had a thought of them, their energy then comes into our field, which can, especially if you've got someone which is a black soul, so especially that can then darken our shade. So if we've got into a white energy, we can then actually grey down. So that can actually sort of really affect the way that we're thinking. It can cause us to feel like we've got depression and stuff, when we actually haven't as much. It's just someone else's energy is affecting us. A bit like if we walk into a room, when you walk into that room and you can tell there's been a row, or you can tell people don't like you, it's that sort of energy field. And even though they're not near us, that can still affect us.
So are you speaking of the ideas behind it, like a set idea is stuck in your system, and when you think of it, it reenacts it, yeah, even if it's harmful to you.
Yeah, so it is sort of that way. So sometimes people say what I do is a placebo effect, so I'll hold my hands up there. And there is sometimes when we actually have someone with mental health issues, it does sort of help with a placebo effect. But at the same time, it's sort of like, for me, they're sending electric energy. So even if you're thought of them, that electric energy just comes into our field. It makes a connection. So it's a bit like plugging in your computer, because you've had that thought, you've plugged in that computer to their computer, and you're then getting that sort of energy field coming in. And it can be, for some people, it can be very hard situation to be in, because they don't understand quite what's going on and stuff. They suddenly feel this person's energy back in their field and stuff like that. We often have it with exes a couple of years down the line. All of a sudden you'll have this thought of them and you're like, I haven't thought about them for years. Why have I got this thought of them? Why am I thinking about them? And that could be simply that they've actually been speaking to someone about you or something like that, and that's just plugged your computers back together.
Yeah, because when I think of possessive beings or whatever in a system, when I see that, it's more like it's this attachment to a way of thinking that
Yeah.
is associated with that needs to be removed from the system, right? Because it's not it's not like you will say, oh, this is a bad being or whatever. Say, okay, go where you are helpful. This is not a place where you're helpful right now, right?
Exactly that. And sometimes we have to cut off people before we can get mentally well. So that's the sort of thing I do. I even cut off the energy because sadly, I know I talk in computer terms, but it's so much easier because that's what everyone understands. But it's like your computer having a virus. You don't want it to have that, so you want to cut it out. You don't want it to, there's some people you don't want to connect with on the social media, so you'll block them, that sort of thing. And this is why, for me, I sort of help do that for people on a spiritual level.
Yeah, I think when I work with that idea, it's like if the being or this thought form doesn't want to leave on its own, you'll get help, right? Like in your case, probably the gods and goddesses. It could be Archangel Michael or whatever. You'll get help, right?
Yeah,
To get them to where they need to be, where this needs to be, and where it's helpful, rather
exactly.
than keeping it stuck in the system where it is actually harmful. Not because it's intentionally harmful. It may be, but it isn't always intentionally harmful, and so it needs to. And you're
Disappear.
holding, and also the person's holding on to it, right? So yeah, I'm probably holding on to things like that as well, haven't kept the connection to many of those, and so we all need to learn to say, okay, no, this is enough,
And
and
disconnect from it.
discover disconnect from it and discover who we actually are, right? Rather than this put together system of ideas that actually doesn't portray the truth, but actually extends an idea that isn't true.
Oh, exactly that. And especially for myself, with people, because when I deal with attachments and stuff, they can be their self. So they could actually be that negative that they cause their own attachment. They could be obviously a spirit or an entity. And the biggest, hardest thing, like, I say to people, give me a building anytime. I can literally take out all the negative energy quite quick from a building. But when it comes to a person, because sometimes they've got so used to that cycle, they've got so used to repeating these behaviors, it is so hard. And sometimes as well, the hardest thing also is, so I have an expression, accepting the darkness within. And one of the hardest things actually is getting people to look inside them and go, okay, that's okay. And go, do you know what? I was a bit selfish there, actually. Or go, actually, I was the problem in that argument. Sometimes getting people to look inside themselves and recognize that is really difficult. And when you've got an attachment and stuff and you have to do that part of it, it's just so horrible. So horrible.
Yeah, one is attached to a way of thinking about it, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, and to change one's mind about it. And of course, in Miracles says you can't change your mind. You can't change the world, but you can change your mind about it. So that in that sense, removing these attachments is also allowing the change of mind to happen that is needed for healing, right?
Exactly that. Exactly that. And this is where, when you go to someone like a counselor and stuff, if you're someone like me, I suffered with PTSD, going over the situations that you were actually had at that time just made it worse, because they were then progressing new memories that I completely forgot about. And I had to go to my family, which was then triggering them, because they were then remembering these situations. So it was triggering them. So it's like this massive, the cycle wasn't just for me, it was getting bigger for everyone. So it's sort of like, I then bumped into a lady that taught me this. And I was so amazed, because I was like, where is this in the NHS? Where is this in the doctor's surgeries? Because everyone calls it spiritual bypassing, etc. But you walk through the pain. You still have to walk through it, because there'll be the days where you suddenly feel down, and there'll be the days where you suddenly feel connected to something you don't want to be, and stuff like that. So you still have to walk through it. You still have to understand your emotions at the time, especially when you've got to look into yourself and start forgiving yourself for some of the situations you were in. So it is sort of like, it's such a better way to progress stuff and progress on the healing journey, in my opinion.
Yeah, this facing what's going on inside yourself is quite a challenge. And to accept that things are failing, right? That you're failing at things, yeah, and that you need to change something, and you don't, and even if you don't know how to do it, that's the big thing, is accepting it means you have to also accept if you don't know what to do about it.
That is one of the hardest things as a human. As a human, we're taught from a child to plan everything out. And one of the ways we're taught that, especially in the West countries, is God has a plan. Whenever you hear that, you straight away think, well, what is the plan? Why don't I know the plan? Why can't I feel the plan? Where is this plan? And one of the things that actually was very hard at first for me to get over was this: there is no plan. Whatever happens, happens. It's okay. That is what's meant to be. And that was really difficult actually at the start, because, you know, we're meant to have these 5-year plans, these 10 years plans. My life's meant to look like this. By the age of 40, I'm meant to own my own home. I'm meant to have my kids, you know, and it was like, actually, it's not like that at all. Yeah, so that's one of the hardest things, I have to admit. It's just looking in yourself and accepting it's okay.
Yeah, it's really challenging to accept that it's okay, whatever. But of course, there's also the side of us that wants to plan and wants to figure out things. So we're actually curious to know why things are happening the way they are, and also curious what solution will show up when we don't know the solution, right? Like, okay, this is happening. This is happening every single time in this type of situation. I okay, I'm certainly in the midst of it, and and so on, and I don't know what to do about it, right? And then as soon as you accept that, okay, you might either go into, okay, there's no way out of this. I have to accept that I'm not good enough, which is not a good idea to say you're not good enough. Or you get really curious about what will turn up to solve the issue.
That is the best one, is actually, rather than going, do you know what, I'm not good enough, is going, right, okay, how do I solve this? Let's look at every single time that's gone wrong. Let's note down every single time that's gone wrong, and let's figure out what went wrong. What was in my energy that I can control this situation? So was it always a certain person coming into the situation and, you know, moaning and groaning about it? Or was it actually the fact that I, in that situation, started panicking, which is what a lot of us do, that this is going to go wrong again, and I've actually destroyed it. So I need to change my energy. I need to change the way I'm thinking, and I need to control myself and put myself and go, yes, I can do this. Why do I think I can't do this? Why am I destroying myself? And this is where the self-destruct behaviors come from, because we do get into that pattern. Sometimes what I personally find is it's after 1 or 2 situations where you've been in that sort of situation where someone else has destroyed it for you, and then after that you sort of continue in that pattern of someone else has destroyed it for you. How do I deal with this? So it's sort of like getting then out of that cycle of thinking of, it's not going to end up bad this time, it's going to be okay. And usually then you'll find a difference. So it's sort of like, what I do is also the power of positive thinking, I will admit that.
Yeah. It's also like giving up or choosing to look forward to what's going to come up, even though it's went wrong every many times. There's still the opportunity that you could actually change the way you think about it.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've actually been dealing with one of my girls just recently. And I said to her, let's change the path. And people look at me like, what? You can't just change the path. And I'm like, yeah, we can. Let's change the path. We're going to choose a different path. I myself have gone through it twice in the last year and a half. So at first I thought it was tarot my gods and goddesses didn't want me doing. And then I realized myself that it wasn't tarot. It was the fact they don't like me. They want me to teach. That is what they want me to do. They want me to heal and teach. So when I realized that, I then had to change my path again. So it's sort of like I had to go on two different path journeys to change. And I think that is the thing, is we may be on the right journey, but is the ending actually meant to be that way?
Yeah, or the idea that the end and the means to that end are the same, as A Course in Miracles says. So if you want to be happy, it's best to start choosing happiness now. And things
Oh,
like that. Yeah. And that's quite a challenge when you're in the midst of a stressful situation or thought pattern. And so, yeah, I guess the idea of removing that thought pattern or that possession or whatever you want to call it, right? Being possessed by that idea, obsessed with it, removing that out of your system can make a huge difference.
oh yeah. So that's another expression I have is a lot of my guys talk about manifestation, which I'm not 100% on whether it actually works, if I'm honest, because I believe in what you're putting out there is what you get back, is my personal opinion. But one of the things that I often say to them, if you do want to manifest, don't obsess. Because if you're obsessing, you ain't manifesting. And that is because you just get so stuck in that goal of where you want to be and where you want to go. Because you are so stuck in that goal, it's a bit like YouTube analytics. You know, we all know it as YouTubers. You literally sit there day in, day out. And I refresh mine 2 or 3 times a day, and I will admit that. After I've seen that there's a video been watched, I will refresh them again. And I think this is one of the things that people don't realize. Then we become a little bit too obsessed, and it can slow down our growth. When we become obsessed with something, it can slow down our growth massively.
Yeah, I guess the idea is also that when you have an idea that isn't helpful and you get stuck in it, right? And it
Yes.
would be wonderful. It's wonderful when you can actually allow that to go and allow something else to come in that. Not that it shouldn't have the same type of energy, of course, because otherwise it would be just as little help as the previous one, right? So it's
Yeah.
often this idea of things are coming it will be better around the corner, right? Like, okay, I'm always looking forward to what's around the corner, and I'm never seeing what's right here and now. And this gets very, you get very obsessed with that. So yeah, it can get in the way of feeling comfortable where you are, or feeling uncomfortable where you are. You want to be able to feel uncomfortable as well and
Yeah,
not
because
go away from it.
no, totally. And I think a lot of people, the hardest bit for a lot of people, if I'm honest, is they're so used to being hurt, they're so used to being in pain, they're so used to that side, they don't actually know what happiness is. They don't know how to enjoy life in a moment, a conversation, something as simple as saying hello in Tesco's. It's not until we get old and we can't get out of the house that we realize, that talk, that person we were so annoyed about seeing while we were out shopping, we were so annoyed about seeing them, we'd do anything to see them now. You know, I'm 80, stuck in my house and I can't get out. I'll do anything for that moment just to say hello to that person again, you know, or once they pass away. And I think this is the problem. We get stuck in so much pain and holding on to so much grief, so much torment. And we torture ourselves more than anyone else can, because you're the only person that you're with 24/7. So you torture yourself more than anyone else can. So when you think about that, it can be, we need to be okay with us, like, first, and that's where happiness begins. Because you don't want to be 80, stuck in your house going, oh, I wish for that one hello. Do you know what I mean? Oh, sorry, that got a bit too deep.
Yeah, it's the same thing when you have a sickness or something that keeps you from being able to do anything. You suddenly think, oh wow, if I could do those things that I was getting negative about or unhappy about, I actually would prefer to be able to do them rather than be sick, right? But of course, you would prefer the happier things as well, right? Not to say that that's the only type of thing you'd be thankful for being able to do if you were aware of how precious it is.
Oh, yes. I think this is the thing that my main message is about, is remembering how precious life is. Remembering how our children don't stay children for long. Remembering how they grow so fast. Like, our babies grow just too fast, if I'm honest. And I think this is one of the things that actually for me is one of the hardest things to get through to people, is that, and especially because part of it means being selfish, and some people aren't okay when they've been abused, etc. They aren't okay with being selfish.
You mean by selfish, taking care of themselves?
Self-love and self-care, they aren't okay with it. And I preach self-love massively. I'm like, get your rose quartz, go chill, go meditate, go sit in a field with your rose quartz, and just chill for 5 minutes and actually just enjoy breathing air. And I think that's actually one good way to start, is not even meditating, but just sitting there and enjoying your own peaceful mind for 5 minutes. When do we ever do that?
Yeah, when is your mind peaceful, right? That's the next question. So that's the fun one. You might give up because you think your mind will never be peaceful, even if you take that time. And I think that's one of the reasons why people don't sit down with themselves, because they're so afraid of what will come out, what will be happening in their mind and in their experience. And
And
yeah, so it can be scary, and it's one of the reasons why people will choose to do something else than that, right? But the other side, there are benefits to sitting down with yourself, even if it's horrible what's coming up. And I've experienced, one of the ideas that think is helpful there is also when, people write down everything that comes up and then
yeah,
allow it to shift, and you can see when it starts shifting. It might be repetitive for a while, but at some point it shifts, right? It may take days, it may take just 10 minutes. You don't know, right? It may be 1 minute, maybe half a minute. But at some point, something shifts, and then it might return to that same repetitive stuff again, and then shift again. But the main thing is that it shifts, and that's what's an experience you need to be aware of.
exactly. It took me 4 years to learn to meditate fully, to get over a 10-minute meditation. It took me 4 years because my mind was just so clouded, so full of stuff. So it literally, I was 24 when I was taught 25, sorry, when I was taught what I've been taught how to heal. And literally it took me from 25 to I was 29/30 to actually learn how to meditate, to learn how to get out of my own head, and not torture myself about being a bad mum, about being a bad partner, about being a bad everything. It took me 4 years, and I'll never forget the day I actually, I'm getting a little bit emotional here. I'll never forget the day I actually finally meditated for half an hour, and I didn't even realize I had. And I literally come out of it, and it was literally like I just sat up, and all of a sudden I looked at the time and I just went, wow, I didn't have one negative thought about myself for half an hour. Wow. And I come out of it and I was so excited, so happy. And it makes me emotional still to this day. And one of the reasons actually that I realized it was possible was my autistic eldest daughter. She's happy being alone. Like, she'd rather be on her own. She'd rather have no one about. And I sat with her one day and I was like, what do you think about? And I asked her straight out, because I was like, how can I control my thoughts the way she's obviously controlling hers? And she just went, either stuff I enjoy or nothing, mummy. I was like, so you don't ever think about you? And she's like, why should I? Do I need to think about me? And I was like, you don't actually have to think about yourself. And that really shocked me, because for me, everyone I know thinks about themselves. They think about themselves in the way that we were taught to think about ourselves. So that could be either that you're a bad person, or you're this, or you're that, or you're this. And it's crazy. The first time you do it is amazing. I'm not going to lie, because it is madness.
Oh yeah, not to think about yourself. Interesting, the idea. But you're thinking about other people is also another thing one can get very obsessed about, or about situations, or all these things. So yeah, it's an interesting idea to say that she's able to think about things she enjoys or nothing. To think about nothing is quite a concept, though. I have no idea what that means.
I don't even, if I'm honest. I remember when I asked her about it, we were sat down and talked, and I was just like, so what do you think about this? She went, I don't have any thoughts on that. And I went, what, not one thought? She was like, no. Does it have anything to do with Greek gods? And I'm like, no, baby girl. She's like, does it have anything to do with Gasheen? I'm like, no, baby girl. She went, I'm not interested in, and walked off. And I just sat there and went, I would love to be able to do that. And I think she actually taught me a lot as well when I was going through the healing journey with what the lady had taught me and everything. I literally sat there and went, imagine in life if you could choose what affected your energy. And that taught me, that is where I get the expression of sort of like about the learning that your energy is the only energy you can control. She is the one that taught me that.
Yeah, very. So in A Course in Miracles, it says it's our only necessity is to accept the atonement for ourselves, meaning that to accept that we are whole, that we are love, that there is nothing that needs to be added or taken away from who we actually are.
Exactly that. So it's accepting. So one of the things that I had to accept within me was I am not a perfect parent, and I don't have to be. That was my major thing I had to accept, because I didn't have a very good 100% childhood. So one of the things for me was being aware that actually you don't have to have a perfect childhood. As long as you're happy, as long as you're feeling love, that is the important thing for my children. And that's what I set out to do and made sure I did.
Yeah, so also that is a very important thing to look at. Love, the expression of love. What is an expression of love and what isn't, right? Because in A Course in Miracles, we differentiate between the holy relationship and yeah, the other one, which is a special relationship, meaning that you make everything special about it, right? Or about yourself. And in the holy relationship, you are whole and the other is whole, and you're just affirming that of the other person and of yourself that you're whole,
I
meaning that you
think,
don't need to force issues in any direction or in any way because you're free.
yes, love is free, and it is the most important free emotion that we have. But also, I think as well is we need to accept that love is different for everyone. So that is one of the hardest things that I find people accept. So if you've been brought up in a home where you've often been rejected, some people see rejection as love, as a form of love. So I think that is actually one of the key things when we're actually looking at what love is. It's how they see it. And this is why when, like myself with the gods and goddesses, I see it different to other people. Or when I was Christian, the love that to me, with the way the Bible's written, God wasn't meant to punish me, because that is not what it shows in the Bible. It doesn't show this punishing God. But then I realized actually, in a way, we are meant to be punished. He is a parent, same as my gods and goddesses. Exactly, rejection may be a blessing. That is so true, actually, because sometimes we have to be rejected to learn what we want. And sometimes rejection is ejecting the bad stuff out of our lives.
So maybe you would like to share why you chose this different way of viewing things. And yes, I do understand that the Bible has has very distinct different ways of seeing who God is or what God is like. And when you think of I mean, I don't believe that it's correct necessarily the way the things have been interpreted in the Old Testament, for instance, because if we are love and our source is love, then the interpretation cannot be right that God would attack or would in any way, shape, or form harm anyone for any reason. You might the so it's like yes, there's a limit to how bad or how evil things can go because it cannot destroy itself. Love does not destroy, so it cannot destroy itself either, and so it cannot destroy what comes of love, right? So the saying we are sourced by love, then we are love, so we cannot be destroyed either. So that is a myth, the idea that who we are could ever be destroyed by anything.
Yes.
Eh, So yeah,
Oh, no, I completely agree. So I better actually explain my story of why I turned into a pagan instead of Christian. So basically, I was strict Christian. So I went to church every Sunday. I was part of Girls Brigade. I don't know whether you know what Girls Brigade is, but it's basically a church group where all the children go to, etc. I've read multiple different Bibles because I wasn't just part of Methodist Church. I was also part of the All Saints Church, which is Church of England, and I was also part of Salvation Army. So I was sort of like a very, very mix of all of them. But for me personally, my cousin passed away when I was 12 years old. And everyone kept saying it's part of God's plan. And that's why I used the expression at the beginning. And I was like, why would God want to punish my auntie by taking away her child? And that just didn't settle right with me, didn't settle okay with me. And I found Wicca, and that's how I come away from it. As well as the fact of I had this gift. So I had it from a child, and in the free churches I'm talking about, it was a no-no. It was a massive no-no. I remember being told from a child that the devil is in me, from a child, sort of like being told that because I can see ghosts, etc., I must have the devil in me. I remember being 10 years old and actually telling family members when they're having mental problems, telling them they've got the devil in them, they've got the devil attached to them and stuff like that. And that sort of turned me against it. My understanding then sort of changed on my opinion of it. I went to Wicca, and then once I researched Wicca, I actually changed again when I was about 21, I think it was. Because weirdly enough, my autistic daughter, one of her obsessions is Greek gods. So, and it was sort of like, so I had to learn it. I didn't have a choice. Not being rude to her, bless her heart. But yeah, I didn't have a choice but to learn it. And I absolutely just felt drawn to them. And it's one of the things that for me personally was very enlightening, because even though you had these gods that punished you, you also had these gods that would lift you up when you actually did the right thing. And also they accepted me for my gifts. So whereas with the Christian God, I felt sort of like, was it my fault with my cousin's death and stuff like that? Because of the fact she died young and I've got this gift and stuff like that. So was it my fault? It sort of like taught me afterwards that it wasn't my fault going towards them and being with them and having a connection with them. So that's sort of why I went turned my back on Christianity.
Yeah, very fascinating because, of course, Christianity also has mystical traditions and the idea of gifts and so on. And also all these stories of the saints who were able to do things. Jesus was able to do amazing things. Even the prophets or those leaders in the past are ascribed to have done so many things in the Bible, right? That you
Yes.
cannot explain through science or anything of the sort, right? You may be able to find some things that could be explained differently and more without God, but there's a lot of things that you cannot explain without saying there's more to it. And so yeah, it's interesting that the churches you were in were obviously saying no to your, or giving you ideas that were very negative, like the idea that if someone is possessed, it's the devil, or if someone is being, or you see some soul attached to them that is harming them or keeping them in a way mindset that isn't helpful, or maybe is helpful but isn't them, right? Isn't fitting for
Yeah.
them. Then you're seeing the devil in action. That was pretty harsh. I mean, to tell a child they're not allowed to see things, and if they do, then it's their fault if something happens. I mean, it's very sad that you had to come to that type of idea about yourself. But that happens everywhere, right? There's other things that people say that have nothing to do with having a gift. They'll just say, yeah, it's your fault, right? Because you did this or that. And it's not about that, right? We need to learn to accept responsibility without blame.
Exactly that. And I think this is one of the things that actually upsets me with the Christian church. They don't ever accept responsibility for what they do. They do so much damage to a lot of Christian children. And I left the Christian church in 1997. And I became a witch in 1999. So I left the church when I was 12. I just told my nan I'm not going anymore. Told my nan everything I was being told, and my nan went, right, okay, yeah, you're not going anymore. Because this is the thing as well. It wasn't discussed with our parents what we were being told. This is the thing that people don't realise. We were being taught this in Girls Brigade and in the children's services. This weren't being told to my nana. And then basically I told her, right, I'm leaving. And then when I was 14, my school librarian accidentally brought in a book about Wicca. Bless her. And I'll never forget it because I thought I could lend it. So I said to her, can I borrow it? And she was like, look, that's actually a personal book. No. And I was like, oh, but it looks so cool. She was like, okay, I'll lend it to you for a week, but bring it back. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And that was it. My obsession started. And that was quite hard because in the 90s, like Google, well, actually, we had Ask Jeeves in the 90s. So we'd literally just got Ask Jeeves and stuff like that. So it was sort of like very, very hard to find information about witchcraft other than the persecutions that had happened. So it was sort of like this spiral of, I want to learn more, but how do I learn more? Because people weren't as open as they are now about witchcraft. Like even in the 90s, when you think that's only nearly 30 years ago now, 40 years ago. Oh my goodness, I'm making myself feel old. 30 years ago now, even in the 90s, it just wasn't a okay thing. Like I remember the parents trying to get Buffy the Vampire Slayer banned, the Craft banned. I remember all of them trying to get them sort of things banned because they were fuming that us British kids were being Americanized, which we were being Americanized, but they were more angry about the way it was actually teaching us about other ways to be. That was more what was making them angry.
Yeah, well, in A Course in Miracles, it says only illusions can fight illusions because the truth doesn't fight, right? It just is and cannot be changed, right? It's eternal. So it's very, very interesting when you think these different ideas are fighting each other, right? But there is what it is it worth it? No, because they're both equally wrong, right? If they're propagating separation, right? The idea that we cannot feel at home right now, right?
Yes. This is one of the things that actually frustrates me because the Bible contradicts itself all the time. Like one minute you're not allowed slavery, and then the next minute you are allowed slavery. So as long as they're not Christian, you're allowed to have them as slaves. That is basically what the Bible teaches us. Quran's the same, Torah's the same. And I'm like, what happened to actually just going, do you know what? They're human, leave them alone. And this is what I love these conversations because it does bring up into enlightenment, the contradictory of it, the way people read it as well is actually a massive effect, because what one word may mean to me may not mean the same to you. And this is one of the things that frustrates me. And I say to people, all our souls are connected. That is the one thing the Bible has right. All our souls are connected. So if all our souls are connected, why are we not accepting each other? Why is, if just because they're not Christian, you can't accept them? And I think that was one of the biggest things as well with leaving Christianity, was I was just learning as well actually about some of the wars going on in Africa. And this is the thing that was actually crazy. I was like, how are people doing this to each other? Just over religion and stuff. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's just a matter of ideas fighting ideas and having the idea that that's necessary. So it wouldn't matter whether they used religion as a pretext, right? In many cases, it's has to do with resources that they think they need. It's this special relationship style of acting, right? In a special relationship, you think the other has something that you need or want that you have to get from them, and the other side also thinks they need to get something that you have, right? And so on and so forth. So it's always this war of who gets what resources because they think the other has the certain resources they want to have or whatever else. So yes, and the idea that you could treat someone differently because they do not have the same faith as you have, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that is awful, and that did lead to a lot of horrible things. And there was a huge debate in the Catholic Church about that because for a long time they supported colonization, right? They said yes, because these are not really people because they're not Christian, right? And then later on, at some point, they changed their view and said, okay, if they can be Christianized, then they're human, right? If they can become Christians. And that changed, at least that one didn't slaughter people and stuff like that as much as one did before. But one actually attempted to change them into Christians. But even that is awful because you're saying if you don't become that, then you're not acceptable. And it led to a whole lot of hybrid religions, including voodoo, right? If you're acquainted with that, how these African religions, they had to adapt, the slaves had to adapt it so that they could have their religion in the background, but had in the front, it looked like it was Catholic, right? So they changed, like their goddesses, like behind a certain saint in the Catholic ideas, there was one of their gods, right? In their
Exactly
ideas, in
that.
their thoughts. And so it was that is very emotional to think that you had to play that game in order to be accepted. But in truth, in truth, they were trying to uphold their traditions, right? And
But
so
this, oh,
so
sorry.
they developed voodoo, right? Which
Yeah. But this is one of the things that people don't realize. So I love the fact you've brought this up. This is one of my specialities, being ancient Rome and ancient Greece. They actually did. So the ancient Romans did that to the Greeks. So that is why everyone puts Jupiter with Zeus. They're not actually the same god at all, but that is why everyone does, because ancient Rome realized it was easier making the ancient Greeks believe that Jupiter was the same god as Zeus. And then when Constantine changed to Roman Catholic, he did exactly the same thing. And we forget when Constantine first ruled, he was putting Christians in, in honey and stuff and letting them have bees around them and stuff like that. And so I love this because this is something that it actually, sometimes I think up until recently, we've had to do. We've had to sort of put our way of life under the carpet so we can still worship them and celebrate them. And I always look at them people and think, how smart are they? I sort of amaze at them because I think, how good are they to actually do that? So things like, the chickens and stuff like that they managed to do and hide. I shouldn't be in awe with them, but I am. Things like using incense in the church is actually a pagan ritual, but no one talks about it. It's like it's hush because they're so scared of the Catholic Church going, oh, no, it's not. So we did it first. It's like, no, you didn't.
yeah, I mean, many of the church sites used to be Celtic sites or other religious sites from other previously adored beliefs and faiths. So it's very strange how that has been an ongoing thing to, so to speak, replace, right? To try to replace what was there, and that
Exactly that.
And so it's a big thing. So it's like A Course in Miracles was saying, illusions fight illusions. It doesn't help to change what illusion you're believing in, right? Because it's the same thing. It's the same energy. It's the same separation thinking, just a different image for it,
Well,
right? So we do need to find to accept that separation thinking isn't the solution.
this is one of the things. So for me personally, one of the reasons why I accepted the ancient Greeks is because the ancient Greek gods is because it made most sense to me, and it's one of the oldest religions. So that's the reason why I accepted that. But my daughter, when she was about 7, my autistic daughter, she came to me and she went, "Mum, is there actually only one God?" And I looked and I went, "No, baby, there's many." She went, "No, no, no, I don't mean that. But is there actually only one God?" And I looked at her and I went, "What do you mean? Is there only one God, baby girl?" And she went, "I don't mean it rudely, Mama, when I say this, but if we look at Japanese culture," and she uses Noah's Ark, so I just explained the story that I'm going to talk about. She says there was a flood and only 2 people survived. I went, "Yes, there was, darling." She went, "Ancient Greeks, there was only a flood and only 2 people survived." I said, "Yes." She went, "Hindu." And she reeled off. I could sit here forever with how many she reeled off, but she reeled off quite a lot. And then she went, "Now let's talk about Noah's Ark." And I looked at her and I'm looking at her like, right, okay, I've got where you're going with this. And she went, "Well, Heracles, in a way, could sort of be matched with Jesus." And I'm like, "How?" And she went, "Well, Jesus had 12 disciples and Heracles had 12 missions." And I'm sat there and I'm going, "Okay, I can see the loopholes. I can see the links and stuff." And she went, "What if you just changed the story so everyone believes?" And I literally took a step back and I was just like, whew, okay. We're going to discuss that, are we? I was like, "You're 7 years old. I'm not doing philosophy with a 7-year-old that's actually coming off smarter at me in a minute." But it was like, wow, if a 7-year-old can see that, how are we not seeing that as adults? It's it's crazy. And what you were saying about there just being one source, I do believe that is what there is. I do believe it is just one source. It's just all of us call it a different name because we need a title. And that's why we shouldn't be fighting over it.
Yeah, and even if you say you have the experience of many, right? Many different ways of connecting with the deeper aspects of who we are, right? And
Yeah.
that they may have many different names and personalities and faces and ways of interacting and helping, or also misleading, right? Possibly. um, but anyways, the understanding that we all have the same sources is a really important one. Yeah.
It really is. And there's a lot of things. If people want to hear about that, I'm sure I can sort that out at some point. There's a lot of places where you can match them and sort of prove that there's one source rather than multiple sources. And I will admit that, and I need a label. And when I speak to Zeus, etc., they're okay with that. They're like, "That's okay. As long as you give us energy and worship us, we don't care." They're like, "We're okay with that." And I think that's one of the things that sadly we've put this human spin on religion, which is not what it was meant to be. It was meant to be a soul spin. So it was meant to be our souls and how we connect with our souls, with the earth, how we connect with nature, etc. And we seem to have lost that. I mean, proof is in where they link. The story's lovely.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, there's many stories that are very similar and have the same message. So exchanging the stories doesn't change the truth, right? Just so exchanging one story for another. I mean, there's so many stories of how everything came about, right?
I think that's another reason why I went towards ancient Greek, because it actually collides with, I shouldn't have used the word collide, but I did, with the Big Bang Theory, with chaos, with the big explosion. And that's actually how chaos was born with Mother Gaia. And that's how everything came around. So I think that is why I sort of went with that one, because it was more on the scientific level as well.
In A Course in Miracles, it speaks of how the world came about through a moment of not laughing anymore. So forgetting to laugh.
That's
So
interesting.
it's a thought of separation that brought this world about, and it's an illusion, right? It's a dream. So once you dispel that illusion, you are once again aware of your wholeness, right? So the more you dispel it, the more aware of your wholeness you are. So it's and you have the help you need, because nothing really happened, right? It was just a thought of separation, right?
Exactly. This is a thing. And in a way, we are having a thought of separation because we forgot, how do I word this nicely? Because of the fact we are separating ourselves from our divine core source. And that is where I see souls in the 3 different colors. It shows where you're more connected with the divine, as well as healed. So part of healing is connection with the divine, it is connection with nature, etc. So this is one of the things that for me personally is massive, because I can understand that theory when I think about the fact, when I see people who aren't connected with the divine, they're not on their soul's correct path, they are in such a, their souls are black, they're in such a dark place. And or they're a CEO and they're a narcissist. But it's sort of like they've disconnected themselves so much from people, from the earth, from everything spiritual, which is quite sad.
Yeah, it's so important to. It also says in A Course in Miracles that the world will end in laughter. So it's so just to give the other side of it, right? So remembering to laugh, to see oneself as whole and happy and content and everything is a
Yeah.
huge is something that we need to learn to do and decide to do. Basically, we already know how to do it, but we need to decide to do it. And so this removing all these attachments to separation thinking, no matter what they appear to be like, right? Like you said, you could see them as some other being attached to someone, right? It doesn't matter what the images are. The importance is that we remember who our connection, right? Our wholeness. And so,
Yeah,
and that certainly is an image of separation, right? Two beings influencing each other, right?
exactly. This is the thing, and I will quote the Buddhists on this. We need to be Zen, we need to just chill. And as you say, laugh. So I love the fact that it says that it ends in laughter, because I'm a bit like, I could actually see that if the world got so light, I could see it not coping with that and just go, yeah, we've had enough now.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to start to wrap up. So if any of the people who are joined us live here have a question, you may write it in, and we might be able to answer it. And otherwise, we will start wrapping up.
Truth as well means something different to everyone. So I may read the English history so different to someone else.
Yes.
But also the truth is having all stories.
Yeah, truth is a very important factor center. And yeah, if we knew the truth, we would not be doubting anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before one of you was saying truth, you were saying many things about truth and trust and so on. So yeah, trust means that you trust the truth, right? The truth is trustworthy. And so yeah, the trust is very deep and very important in the journey. And yeah,
Yeah.
the truth will set us free, it says in many contexts. So yeah.
But the trouble is, you're never going to know the truth. This is a problem. We've got so many charlatans around now. We've got so many people who are just doing stuff because it can make them money. They are narcissists hiding as white lights is the way I'm going to word it. We've got so many people now, and I don't want to call it just now because we've had them for centuries. So I'm not going to call it just now. We've always had it. So it's sort of like getting to the truth, because then people as well know how to hide the truth. So things like, no one knows how Lady Jane Grey actually felt while she was in the tower, because all her diaries and her letters during that time were burned. So none of us actually know how she felt during that time, because they hid how she felt, how she was left alone by everyone, why they run off. All we've got is Queen Mary the First. All we've got is her record. We don't have Mary Jane, Queen Mary, Queen Jane. I'll get her name right in a minute. But to me, she'll always be Queen Jane. She won't be Lady Jane Grey like everyone calls her, because she was still Queen of 9 Days. And I think that is one thing that people forget, is truth is also different from different perspectives and different opinions.
Well, let's say we're speaking about two different things. When we speak of truth as something eternal and always true and never can be changed or in any way altered, then we're not speaking about perceptions and ideas about a world that came about through separation thinking. So it's more like an experience, a universal experience that everyone
But I
has,
think that
but
can go.
is putting something in the way of that experience. So yeah, I understand what you're saying in the context of this dream that we're in, right? This world that you will, what we call truth, or the facts of a matter, um, they're very disputable and very
But they
difficult
are
to
within
come
us as
by.
well. They are within us. So that's what I was also trying to say. Our point of view. You may see something from your point of view, and that is fine, because that's from your point of view. So that is your truth. So even in our memories and when we're thinking a thought, that is our truth. And that is how that event happened. So sometimes this is the thing that causes separation, is actually the truth is never the truth, which sounds really weird.
So I guess we'll leave this mystery to everyone to discern for themselves and find out what makes sense that doesn't. So is there any question I didn't ask you that you'd like to answer?
No, I didn't see anyone. I sort of saw comments and stuff, so no.
Okay, then I'd like to thank you so much for joining me here on this
Thank
exploration
you.
of what it means to be human and to explore how to come home, right? Remember that we are at home and remember what it's like. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you, everyone who joined us live, and everyone who will be viewing this and listening to it. Thank you so much. Please leave comments. Let us know what you think. And if you want to be a guest, please reach out to me, because I'd love that, because it's so fascinating. And if you know someone who would be a great guest, you can also let them know about it. And please subscribe to the podcast and leave reviews so that more people find out about it. Blessings to you all, and till next time.